Have you ever held off reading a book when it was really popular and then regretted it later on? That is what I did with When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I held off. Everybody was reading it when it was popular, and I did not read it when it was popular. And then I finally read it, and I was like, oh my God, this book is so good. So I want to talk about it. I gave this one 5 stars and 3 on the spice meter. So some of the things you can come to expect in this book is second chance romance, unaliving, angst, magic, snarky banter, violence. You know what? This book just has quite a bit of dark things. So just go ahead and check all your trigger warnings before you go ahead and dive into this one. So what happened when this book came out is I had seen the paperback on the shelves, and I saw that there was a pre-order for the hardback. So I was like, I'm going to order the pre-order for the hardback. So I decided not to buy the paperback, and I put in a pre-order for the hardback. I waited and then I just stuck the hardback on my shelf and never read it. And then one day I was just sitting here and I have Audible, and I had an Audible credit available. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to use my Audible credit and I'm going to get the audiobook for this, and I'm going to co-read it because, again, we talked about this. I like to co-read the audio with my book. So of course I used my Audible credit and then co-read with this, and I devoured it. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I was like a little addict. I was totally into it. I could not put it down. It was so good. So that is how I managed not to read this when it was popular. But you know what? Better late than never. Okay, enough story time. So let's go ahead and actually start talking about the book. So because I waited so long to read this book, I could not even remember what it was about. So I actually went into this book 100% blind. Yes, I used my Audible credit, going into it completely blind. I knew that I had to have known it was a good book when I ordered it. Obviously, I was going to order it on hardback. I must have known that it was a good book. So yes, I went into it 100% blind. That's the things I do. Okay, guys, I cannot explain it. Anyways, so I went into this 100% blind, and it worked out really well because I actually really liked the world building. I really enjoyed the magic system. I found it very unique, and I really appreciated that because sometimes when you read a lot of fantasy, a lot of the things get reused, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when you get a original magic system and very original world building, it is very refreshing. And so this was a very refreshing fantasy book for me, and I absolutely loved it. I do have to admit, in the beginning, there was some point of view stuff that I was completely like blown away and confused as all high heaven over for a while. But then when things started clicking into place, I was like, oh, okay. But I think this kind of adds to the suspense and the mystery of it, which really helps keep you pulled in. And that was also, again, another pretty cool aspect that I enjoyed about the book. So then you have everything starting to click in place, and then the romance is a slow burn, and I'm seeing that the book is slowly getting closer and closer to the end, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am just getting, it's gonna end, I know it's gonna end, and I'm just getting like totally hooked into this book. And of course it did. It ended on a cliffhanger that had me going, oh no, and it did. So yes, I will admit this one it did end on a cliffhanger, but it is good. And when I get hyped over books like this, we know I'm a romantasy lover, first foremost over all other genres anyways. But this one, it had me in a chokehold. There's very few series that had me in a chokehold like this, and this is one of them. So this beautiful book is a fantasy romance, and I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick overview so you can decide whether you want to read this one or not. Raeve is an assassin who finds herself imprisoned by the Guild of Nobles. Khan is supposed to be her enemy, and he finds her imprisoned there and feels an echo of what burnt between them. His heart has been torn apart before, but their story may become more complicated than she ever expected. I loved this book. I cannot wait for book 2. I will be hunting down book 2 the day it comes out. I am going to tell you all this now. I am super excited. I love this book, and I think you just might too.